Hey everybody, this is Jordan Rudess of Dream Theater, and I'm actually sitting here with Michael Custodis, my very good friend, and we are reaching very deep and talking about music and me as a composer, as a musician, the various projects I've been in, and having me really think about stuff and doing musical examples, just having a good time. So check it out. Here we go. It's a very good question. It's a question that actually gets very confused because there was that period in time when progressive rock existed and was really coming off the ground, and it was a big emergence of a style. You know, groups like Yes or Jethro Tull or King Crimson, you know, very late 60s, maybe into 70s, but mostly in the 70s is when all that stuff started to happen. And so a lot of people think, oh, progressive rock music is that. It's old. It's an old thing. But of course, it's in a way, it's a very good term, like progressive rock, because I think what it really means and what they were really doing was they were pushing the boundaries. They were starting to really use more advanced harmonic, melodic, rhythmic concepts within a rock and roll type of idea, the rock and roll energy, but take it and start adding, you know, more interesting harmony, rhythm, melodies, all the different aspects of music. And that's, you know, so those guys were the guys just going, okay, we can do this. They had the electric guitars, they had the organs, and then the synthesizers. And now, of course, we have a lot more. So where is it going to next? I mean, there's a lot of movement still in the progressive world. So we have to get out of the progressive rock as the 70s and think progressive music, progressive rock can be something new and different. One of the things I'd love to study, always loved to study, was the whole Bach kind of thing, where you have to be very, very focused to understand the music. There's a lot of parts going on, and even in my rock music, I like rock music that was kind of influenced by Bach as well. There's a group that I know you're aware of called Gentle Giant that had a lot of really cool counterpoint going on and other elements too, but I was always interested in that kind of thing. So, and I would practice Bach, but also practice playing in the style of Gentle Giant, and to understand and to be able to kind of speak that language. So it involves, you know, having different voices moving around. Just find a sound that actually speaks a little faster to do that. Three-voice harmony that I have to kind of like control in real time, but it's very much inspired by like Bach. And then Gentle Giant, because it sounds Bach-ish, but when it starts being odd time signatures, then it's like, okay, that's not Bach, because he didn't write much in 7/8 time. This wasn't his thing. But if you do that in 7/8, cool and like yeah, definitely. I mean, there are. I mean, I'm someone who appreciates very basic kind of chords, like just, you know, simple major and minor chords. If a piece is just going to be, you know, that's fine with me, you know, just, and it has a certain purpose. And if the chords are going to be, that's a whole different headspace. All the fancy chords, whatever. Bluesy, and everything has a different kind of meaning. So for me, it's each one creates its own expression. Whether I go for like the Emerson-y kind of, I call it the Emerson-y thing, but obviously he got his thing from somewhere else, which was the more, you know, these kind of fourths. Genesis where you have a droning bass. Starting it in like 4/4 and then throwing in a different meter, all of a sudden you've got prog, right? So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4. So yeah, kind of like that. So I do go to these certain styles because I know they're almost like trigger points. Every period of music had its elements of like trigger points. Like if I start going like, you'll probably think, oh, he's going to play Chopin. You know, it's just these little things that you can kind of learn and pick up on either by your ear or by the music or whatever. So that's, as a composer, I'm using these, the ones that kind of fill my mind. Kind of somewhere between. I mean, like, I'm definitely a progressive musician, but I'm also like a classical musician in a lot of ways. I mean, I still write on, with a pencil and paper and work things out and counterpoint and all this kind of good stuff. But I'm not focused on any one style. I'm working in the progressive rock genre. I like to mix in the electronic sound, so sometimes it's a fusion. I like to work in more of a gentle, whatever you call it, new agey piano style. Or so many different things that interest me. I guess that's why I'm so busy all the time. But what I love most is I love fusing together the various things that I'm aware of and that inspire me. That to me is who I am. I think that's what makes me kind of like, unique. You want to hear a funny story?
Yeah.
It is embarrassing, but it's funny. It's worth telling. So I'm on Cruise to the Edge last year, and I'm in the hallway, and they play music in the hallway constantly, prog music.
Yeah.
It's like, usually it would be Muzak somewhere else, but in Cruise to the Edge, you're in the hallway, and they're playing like progressive stuff. So I'm walking down the hallway. All of a sudden, I hear this really, what seems to me to be very, very cool music, like really cool. And I stop, and I'm listening, and I'm going, geez, what is this? It's so amazing. It sounds so cool. And then I'm there, and Mike Portnoy comes walking. He just happens to be walking down the other way, and he sees me looking. I say, what is it? He says, Jordan, that's from your first solo album. I'm like, what? Oh my God, you're right, that's me. So every day is a new day here.
Revisiting your music.
What a great perspective, right?
It
so
is.
It was completely new.
No, it's
I'm thinking, who is this amazing progressive rock keyboardist? It's really good.
But like having a more like an objective perspective from
Not
outside.
so bad, right?
No, I guess you're quite in
It's
some good company.
It's a gift.
Yeah.
So I'll revisit the S2M thing another time.
Yeah, don't worry. I was just curious because somehow there was a different impact from you, and I thought you already produced so much music with Dream Theater.
That kind of thing you had.
Add a new flavor, add a new element.
Yes. Well, I'm always trying to throw different things into this soup. Like years ago when I first joined Liquid Tension, that was when I introduced the guys to the idea of taking something that was a melody and moving it to the bass and changing it around. So you might have like, and all of a sudden it's like, I'll start moving things. And they were like, oh, that's cool. So we come up with these really heavy bass lines, and I'd be putting all these chords. And so an interesting compositional, technique. So certainly reharmonizing. We did that on The Astonishing, where we had a simple melody, and I would just kind of find other chords to put below it. So. Well, I think being a progressive musician, that's part of the game for me, and even the other guys in my group, Dream Theater. We're always practicing. We're very aware of any shortcomings of anything we're playing. our scales and arpeggios if there's a little rough spot or there's something that's just not flowing as smoothly as we want it to. We're always working on it. So that part is not really such a challenge. I can imagine somebody who has like a very limited technique and they know they're not going anywhere, but they're really musical. That could be more of an issue if somebody's just playing songs and they're like, and they might have made a very nice album, but they don't have much of a harmonic knowledge. Then what are they really gonna do? I mean, they could sit and they could get into the headspace of practicing, starting to learn all the possible inversions and the way things work, you know. The next thing, you know, they've got a little bit of a technique and they're rippling chords and then it is. But for me, my whole kind of like path is like, how expansive can I make this? How far can I take this idea of allowing what goes on in my head to come out musically? So it's always a question of as a keyboardist or pianist, will my hands allow me to do what's in my head? And of course, you know, to a certain point it will, but your mind is always going to be a little bit beyond what might be physically possible. Yeah. Well, first of all, I see technique as the art of being able to play whatever comes into your head. So if I want to be like, sorry, that sound is not speaking fast enough. Yeah, it's like, I want to have something, I really hear this, you know, something really articulated. I want to be able to do that. But at the same time, it takes a certain technique to play the dynamic levels and have the control to be able to do that. So there's that part of it where technique is more than just, you know, being able to play like fast and clean. That's great and it's important when you're expressing a musical idea. But to be able to play whatever comes into your head, especially for somebody like me where I'll do a lot of improvisation, even when I'm composing, it comes a lot from improvising. So I might be, okay, I want to write a piece and let's see, I want to go, I like that. Okay, so I'll put that down and then what's coming up next. So at least it allows me to do whatever I want to a point. Of course, I'm always working on my technique like anybody else. But that allows me to express. And then as far as the audience goes, if I'm doing something in front of the audience where I'm improvising, I'll try to be very sensitive to the feeling in the room and also just the general musicality to express something that makes sense and is not just, you know, just ego and trying to go crazy. Although I like to have a little finger dance sometimes and it feels fun, especially if I'm warmed up, I won't lie. But yeah, that's kind of the way I think about things. Well, I think that in order to predict the future, you have to kind of be very aware of technology, because even in a world like, let's say, the guitar world or something like that, which is basic rock and roll, there are things happening with effects and equipment and pedals and all the different things that you know, a guitarist can do. Every instrument kind of that's involved with growth. Guitar is certainly one of them. Keyboards, synthesizers, electronics. There's a movement towards what's happening next. So to be really in touch with, you know, what the future is going to bring, you need to have your finger on the pulse of that. So for me, that means, you know, instruments like the Continuum or the Seaboard or the iPad, which, you know, you can do all kinds of cool stuff. And then you have a chance of understanding and pushing the boundaries and moving into the future. Yeah, so basically the sound is kind of like the color, and I see it almost like being a painter, and I have to be very aware and very sensitive to the sound. So according to what sound I play, my improvisation is going to be entirely different. A lot of times the sound can influence the composition. So, I mean, without even looking, if I just go like this and then put my hand down the key and I have that sound, I'm going to play a certain kind of thing, you know. Whereas if it was was a different sound, I'd play something, very different. So I don't know what this sound is. Attack, it has a certain decay. I'll scroll without even looking, and then I'm on this sound that doesn't make any sound, so that's not a good one to demonstrate. But this is a very quick attack, so I can do all kinds of interesting things. Maybe.
Of improvisation do you plan? Because, for example, certain things you know that you have like 12 bars, but do you somehow
I don't need any planning. No,
you just do.
Everything I'm playing is off the top of my head. It's almost like talking, The ideas come up at the moment as the words come out at the moment that I'm going to.
But somehow, do you sometimes, let's say, trigger your own improvisation that I need this kind of direction, or this if you're improvising solo or in the band context?
Yeah, I will, go for a certain kind of sound, almost like I guess a plan. Like I want to create something that's really, really. Mellow, or I want to do something that is very progressive, so I might pick something like, let's see, I'll show you something cool. Sorry, I'm just looking for some particular sound here. Yeah. So let's say I knew that I wanted to create a very large kind of orchestral thing. I'd call up a sound that I could express that. Then I would begin improvising with that. So like here's a sound, kind of a large sound, and so it inspires me to... would be a totally different kind of a mood if I had. So often if I'm doing a concert and I know improvisation will be part of it, I'll kind of lay out my sonic colors. And I'll know, okay, well I want to start with something upbeat and perky, and it's going to have some counterpoint, and I might have this sound. As soon as I play it, I'll start getting inspired and play something maybe progressive or whatever, and then I want to go back to something that's more like strings and pretty and... So I'll literally lay out my ideas of the emotions that I want to get into, and then have the sounds ready to go.
You don't quote very often with direct quotations of certain melodies. Only sometimes you did, and that was, I would argue, for a context with audience, that it's always playing with knowledge, that they really think it's funny, like when you're getting into the atmosphere of a honky-tonk piano, or when you're really getting into the classical context. Like, I just looked it up when you played The Rage Over a Lost Penny. The context was that not only performing the piece was nice, but somehow also the context really made it funny.
Well, a lot of people don't even know what that piece is, but they hear the... and they go, that's cool. Even I mean, maybe they heard it somewhere, and it rings a little bell, and that's...
But what's the comic aspect for you? Just to have it in this context, or just to trigger them and get this, to trigger their knowledge?
It's not, yeah, I mean, stylistic things. Yeah, certainly a particular melody will mean something to somebody, but a stylistic thing, if all of a sudden I start to go, doesn't have to be a song you know, because I'm making it up. It sounds like something, but it's not. So it kind of has the same idea of just like triggering something in you that means something.
Right.
And I guess music is like that. You're constantly playing with triggers. If I play, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, that's like a Beethoven thing because the chords are very dark. But it's playing with sonic color, not so much an existing melody. Yeah, I mean, I really respond to music that is written with the piano sonority in mind. A lot of music I find is not so much piano music, and then I don't respond to it as much. And even with like this, digital piano, still, you play it and it speaks piano, and therefore certain things are going to sound better. I mean, like Beethoven made some very definite choices in having like very rich, very full, low sounds. A lot of composers don't do that, but he had a way to do that and get a certain emotion. When the chord was played, you go, oh, it's angry or whatever. But the same is true with every other register of the piano. And in general, when you're thinking about the piano, like I think in general, I want to spread out the low notes because it gets a little bit mushy or clouded, and if I can spread things out more like Chopin style, and it makes more sense to my ear. And as a pianist, you're always kind of like listening to the sound because you're not always like on it like a wind instrument or like a string instrument. When you play the piano, it's very much that you're playing a sound like you do this, and then the sound is ringing, and then it's your job to kind of like figure out the next thing that's going to happen in the space. So you kind of become the listener. Now we're listening, and now I'm putting the energy out, but then I'm also hearing where it's going. And that's like the beautiful thing about the piano is that you're not always having to produce the sound. Sometimes you're just doing something, and then you have a chance to listen and decide on what's next. And it's a really interesting, very advanced kind of music-making process. It's like a constant learning process. Like even the most basic sounds. Like I was thinking the other day. Like what is it about being a pianist that is so unique? Because on one hand, I work with all these expressive, new instruments at every moment that you're pressing on the screen or whatever. It's expressing the sound and controlling parameters, and you're always in control. But on the piano, if I play something, it's like, and then. I'm not doing anything right now. I'm just making a decision what I want to do next. And I let it sit, and I go, okay. There's this other, and I'm learning about this still. I always did this, but having the perspective and the understanding about what it really is. Why is the piano so special? And I came to the idea that it's all about kind of being not only a player to where you're putting out the energy, but you're also listening and taking it in, and then you're becoming the listener at the same time. So the piano is resonating and you're listening to it. It's very different. It's a whole different, almost like kind of art form, being a pianist or any of the instruments that kind of function like that, where you play something and then the sound goes without necessarily your being right on it, like a guitar. Think of an acoustic guitar player would be like that as well. Or now I'm looking at like organ stuff and understanding like the depths of that. Like how deep can you go with that? Like what's really going on? What's the cool part about that? maybe I didn't totally get it, completely the last time I was in that space, but now I'm more fine-tuned to what is really the magic in that sound. So always kind of like, looking a little bit deeper, my endless search for sound.